Hello, I'm Brian Vermeer. Welcome to this week's lesson. We're continuing our study through the book of James and looking at living our faith, actually living out what it is we say that we believe. Today I'm going to be preaching to myself quite a bit. We're talking about taming the tongue. Can people tell that you are a Christian by the things that you say and the things that you talk about? We're going to be in James chapter 3. So let's get right into the lesson by looking at verses 1 through the first part of verse 5. James says, "Not many should become teachers, my brothers, because you know that we will receive a stricter judgment. For we all stumble in many ways. If anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is mature, able to control the whole body. Now if we put bits into the mouths of horses so they obey us, we direct their whole bodies. And consider ships. Though very large and driven by fierce winds, they are guided by a very small rudder wherever the will of the pilot directs. So too the tongue is a small part of the body. It boasts great things." So this first verse, again, this is one that speaks to me. Not many should become teachers. Not only have I been teaching Sunday school for over 30 years, but I've also spent 17 years of my life as a high school science teacher. And something that teachers need to remember and probably should be scared by, whether you are a church teacher, a school teacher, most of us actually, even as a parent, you are a teacher in many respects. Most of the things your kids learn, actually, they're going to learn from you simply by watching you. But something we need to remember as teachers is that our students, our kids, the ones that we teach, look at us as the expert. We are the one who is expected to know what we are talking about. We are the ones who are expected to be telling them the truth about whatever it is that we are teaching. So whatever it is we tell them, they're going to take that to be the truth. It must be right because that's what the teacher said. And that's one of the things that James is warning teachers about here. And he says, as teachers, we are going to receive stricter judgment. Now, he's probably specifically talking about Bible teachers and teachers in the church. But I think this also applies to school teachers. This also applies to parents when we teach our kids. Anyone who is in a teaching capacity, we are going to receive a stricter judgment from God because there are some people who either will or will not be saved because of the things that we, as biblical teachers, as Sunday school teachers, as religious teachers in any sense, because of the things that we tell them. If we tell them wrong, they're going to believe the wrong thing. And there are some who will be saved because of what we say, if we tell them the right things. So God is going to put a stricter judgment on those of us who claim to know the truth and be telling the truth to other people. And then he says, no, we all stumble in many ways. That's just something that's true about all people. We all stumble. We all do things that are wrong. We're all sinful creatures. We know that. But that's not an excuse. If we stumble, we need to correct ourselves. We need to let people know that that was wrong or that we failed in that way. He says, if anyone doesn't stumble, then he is mature, able to control his whole body. He then goes into this thing about horses. He says, if we put bits into the mouths of horses so they obey us, then we can direct their whole body. A horse is controlled by putting a small piece of metal in the horse's mouth connected to the reins on either side. So when you pull on this side, it pulls the horse's head this way and he goes that direction. You pull on this side, it turns his head this way and he goes that direction. Many people's lives go the direction that their teachers tell them to go. If a teacher tells you you should do this, you're more likely to do this. If a teacher tells you to do that, you're more likely to do that. So we oftentimes need to have bits placed in our own mouths to control the way we go, to control the way control the things that we say. That little tiny bit can control the whole body. And he then compares that to your tongue. Your tongue is a very small part of your body, but it's one of the most powerful. It can control not only the way you go, but the way that other people go as well. He also compares your tongue to a ship's rudder. The rudder of a ship is a little small piece of metal or wood on the back of a ship. Yet when that rudder turns one direction, it makes the ship go that direction. If you turn it the other direction, it makes the ship go that direction. The whole ship goes the way that small rudder tells it to. And in the same way, whole lives will turn based on what somebody's tongue says. The things that we say can not only affect our lives, they can affect the lives of other people. So, teachers will receive a stronger judgment from God because the things that we say will affect the lives of other people in ways that maybe we don't expect. Hopefully, they're all good ways. But if we say the wrong things, then they can be in a bad way as well. Let's continue on skip ahead a little bit to verses 9 through 10. He says, "With the tongue we bless our Lord and Father, and with it we curse people who are made in God's likeness. Blessing and cursing come out of the same mouth. My brothers and sisters, these things should not be this way." Have you ever heard somebody say, after hearing somebody utter an obscene statement, utter an obscenity, have you ever heard someone say, "Ooh, you kiss your mother with that mouth"? Think about it. You kiss your loved ones with the same mouth that you use to utter obscenities, if you're a person prone to do that. I am a person who normally will not use obscene words, what people call cuss words. I was just not raised that way. You don't say those things. And I've had people talk to me. They'll say, "Well, it's just words, big deal. You know, what's wrong?" When I've had to get on to students for saying things like that in class, I've had them say, "Well, they're just words. What's the big deal?" Well, maybe they're just words. But they're words that some people find obscene. And some people are offended by it. Now, I'm not going to go the whole way and say you shouldn't do anything that offends other people. But if you know that what you're about to say, not the statement you make, but the word you choose to make that statement is offensive to people, then why say it? If there's other ways to get your point across, if there's other ways to say what you mean to say, then why not use those words? Why deliberately use a word that you know is going to turn off your audience, or at least some of your audience? That's why usually the only times you'll hear me cuss will be if I am directly quoting someone, which is also very rare. There's just other words that I know I can use. If I'm in an argument with someone, as soon as the other person results to cursing or name-calling, I know I've won the argument, because that means the other person has now run out of intelligent responses, as far as I'm concerned. They can no longer answer the argument. They can no longer make a case on their side. So he's talking about language here, and he's talking about the language that we use. Blessings and cursings coming out of the same mouth. That should not be. You may have heard, a phrase we use quite a bit. My wife actually mentioned this when she heard what we were going to be talking about this week. If you can't say something nice, then don't say anything at all. And that's something that a lot of us are taught. And that's kind of what James is saying here. When it comes time to say something about somebody else, there are things that we need to remember. Is what we are saying true? And is what we are saying beneficial? I think I've told this story before about the student who came into my class once complaining because another student was saying something about her. As you know, school kids are wont to do, they're going to talk about each other. So this girl comes into class once just complaining because some other girl has been saying things about her that apparently were not flattering. And I just looked at her, I said, well, first of all, is what she is saying true? Because if it's true, then you're the one who has the problem, not her. And she said, no, it's not true. What this thing that she's saying, I didn't even know what it was she was saying. I didn't ask what it was she was saying. I just asked her, is it true? And she said, no, it's not true. And I said, okay. So what she's saying is not true about you. Are you afraid that your friends are going to believe it? Are you afraid that your friends are going to believe it's true? Because if that's also the case, then again, you've got a problem. The problem is you. If people are talking about us and saying bad things about us, number one, is what they're saying true? Because if we're actually doing whatever it is they're accusing us of doing, then we're the one who has the problem. And then secondly, if we're worried if it's not true, but we're worried that our friends will believe it, then again we have a problem, because that means we're living our lives in such a way that it's believable that we could be doing something that we shouldn't be doing. And she said, no, I'm not worried that my friends know better. They know I wouldn't actually do that. And I said, okay, so this girl is saying something bad about you, but it's not true. And your friends aren't going to believe it. Are you worried that your enemies might believe it? And she thinks for a minute, and I just said, before she could answer, I said, who cares what they think? They're going to think bad things about you anyway. You're always going to have people that don't like you. You're always going to have people that want to think you're doing the wrong thing. What we need to do is live our lives in such a way that nobody can say anything bad about us. And if somebody does, nobody will believe it. But on the other side, we need to be the other way around too. We don't need to be the ones spreading the lies about other people. Or even if it's not a lie, even if it is true, is what we're saying beneficial? Are we saying it to help the person that we're talking about? If someone else is doing something wrong, then who do we need to talk to about it? Do we need to be spreading it all over town? No, we need to talk to the person and address it with them and them alone. The Bible tells us in Matthew 18, if your brother offends you, if another Christian does something that is wrong, especially if he does it to you, then the first step is you go and discuss it with him. You don't start spreading the news all over town and talking about what a bad person that is. And then Jesus said in that passage, and this is Jesus telling us this, if he won't listen to you, then take 2 or 3 others with you, so that in the mouths of 2 or 3 witnesses, it may be decided. A court case in ancient Israel had to have 2 witnesses in order to be able to successfully prosecute somebody. So take some neutral parties along with you to hear the grievance, and then let them decide. And then it says, if he won't listen to what the 2 witnesses say, then you bring the matter before the church. Again, not before the town, you bring it before the church. You bring it before the pastor or someone like that. You don't just start trying to ruin somebody's reputation. Don't let blessings and cursings come out of the same mouth. We should not be cursing people anyway. There is no reason to curse. There is no intelligent reason to use obscene language or to put a curse on someone. And by the way, when I do hear people using obscene language, sometimes I get them to ask themselves, think about what it is you're actually saying, because these words actually have meanings. I remember my dad telling me once, the worst thing that you can ever say to somebody, and I'm going to quote my dad on this. He said, the worst thing you could ever say to someone is damn you. Because that word literally means to send to hell. So when you tell somebody that, what you are saying is, I am praying that God will send you to hell. And that's the absolute worst thing that we can pray for anyone, that we can want for anyone. Even though that word is today probably considered the tamest of the curse words, it probably has the absolute worst meaning. So think about what you say before you say it. Let's finish up now by looking at verses 13 through 18 of James chapter 3. He says, who among you is wise and understanding? By his good conduct he should show that his works are done in the gentleness that comes from wisdom. But if you have bitter envy and selfish ambition in your heart, don't boast and deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come down from above, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. For where there is envy and selfish ambition, there is disorder and every evil practice. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peace-loving, gentle, compliant, full of mercy and good fruits, unwavering, without pretense. And the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace by those who cultivate peace. So, who among us is wise and understanding? If you are a teacher, hopefully you are wise and understanding. Where does wisdom come from? It comes from God. James says, if any of you lacks wisdom, ask God, who gives, generously. But then he says, by your good conduct, you should show it. Show your wisdom and understanding by your actions. Last week we talked about letting our actions show our faith. If you are truly saved, if you truly believe in God, you will want to do good works for God. And in the same way, if we are truly saved, if we truly believe in Christ, then our words should show it as well. He says, if you have bitter envy and selfish ambition in your heart, don't boast and deny the truth. Don't lie to yourself. If you have these bad feelings in your heart, this can be taken a couple of ways. Either don't deny the truth that you actually have those feelings. You need to confront those feelings. You need to find out what's causing them. and you need to take care of that. But it could also mean don't boast about the fact that you have those feelings and deny the truth that comes from God. And I think actually that's kind of what he's trying to say here. Don't boast that you hate somebody. We should not hate anyone. Everyone is made in the image of God. We should not have bitter feelings toward anyone. And I know that's hard to do. There are some people that it's not just a case of, well, I don't like hanging around that person because we have nothing in common, because that person just has a bad attitude and it's hard to be around. There are some people where the bad attitude is on our part, where that person may be trying to be a friend with us, but maybe because of something he did a long time ago, we have the hard time. We should not boast about that. We need to take those feelings before God and ask Him to do away with those feelings. We need to forgive that person if that person did something to us, and not hold it against them. He said the wisdom that is of boasting and denying the truth does not come from above. That's not what God wants for us. He says, where there's envy and selfish ambition, there is disorder and every evil practice. Almost, and I'm not going to say the Buddhists actually have it right here, but one of the things that the Buddhists teach is that all evil is caused by selfish desire. And while I won't go so far again as to say that they're right, I think there's a lot of wisdom in that saying. Most of the evil in our world comes from selfishness. It comes from somebody wanting more than he's entitled to. It comes from somebody thinking he deserves better. If you look at all of the bad things that happen, why do wars happen? Usually because somebody wants a piece of land that somebody else has. Or because somebody did something so the other person feels he has to get even. That's a selfish desire. That's not wanting what's good for the other person. That's wanting what you think is good for you. We are to be servants. We are to constantly want what is best for others, not what is best for us. And getting away from that thinking, from selfishness, leads to all kinds of evil. He said the wisdom from above is pure, peace-loving, gentle, compliant, and full of mercy and good fruit. And that speaks for itself. So when you use your tongue, when we speak, are we speaking in order to make other people better? Or are we speaking to make ourselves look better? Our words should be like our actions. Jesus said, whoever wants to be the greatest needs to be the servant of all. Do your words make you a servant? Do the things you say help build up other people more than yourself? Do your words show your faith in God? That is what James is telling us to do. Can people tell that you are a Christian? Not only by the way you live, that's what we talked about last week, but by the things that you say. By the way you talk to other people, by the way you talk about other people. Next week, we're going to talk about facing the enemy. We all have enemies. And then there is the enemy. And we'll talk about that next week. Please like and support. If you're able to give as little as $5 a month, please go to the Patreon page and sign up. This is what I do for a living. So, please help if you can. Thanks for watching.